Donald J. Trump is taking the gloves off against George W. Bush and Jeb Bush, and in this video we're going to examine just some of the controversial statements that are making headlines everywhere, but with the mainstream media just talking about these comments, we're going to actually examine them. Now, Donald J. Trump actually tweeted that now that George W. Bush is campaigning for Jeb, is it fair to question the World Trade Center, the Iraq War, and the economic collapse? And that's exactly what he's doing, because he's criticizing George W. Bush not only for launching the Iraq War, but also faulting him for the September 11th terrorist attacks. He actually just said on CNN that George W. Bush knew that the attacks were coming, that he was warned by the CIA and allowed these attacks to happen. Well, when you look at the evidence, with the presidential daily briefings, with the intelligence warnings, with other countries warning us, George W. Bush did know that these attacks were going to happen and allowed them to happen. To get into this topic more extensively, it would take me an hour in this video, but you have to do your own research. But what the mainstream media is not talking about is the fact that Jeb Bush was also a part of the Project for a New American Century, which was a neoconservative think tank that was founded before 9/11. And before 9/11, this neocon establishment warmongering organization called for a galvanizing Pearl Harbor event in order to launch wars in the Middle East to expand the United States dominance in the entire world. So before 9/11, Jeb Bush's organization that he was a part of, the Project for a New American Century, called for a new Pearl Harbor, aka 9/11, in order to justify foreign wars, Iraq, to expand the United States dominance. Now, a lot of other members, a part of the Project for a New American Century, turned out to be George Bush's foreign policy advisors, and now those same members are advising Jeb Bush on the election trail for his 2016 presidential run. We also have other interesting news coming from Richard Gage, who is the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. His organization has 2,300 professional architects and engineers who are calling for a new 9/11 investigation. And according to Richard Gage, the founder of this organization, Donald Trump is the only presidential candidate to get back to them after they sent him DVDs and literature about just some of the peer-reviewed evidence questioning the official version of 9/11. Donald Trump's team wrote back thanking them for the books, for the DVDs, and saying that their advisors will be investigating these claims made by architects and engineers, and they will draw their own conclusions. We have interviewed Richard Gage on this YouTube channel extensively. You have to look into his organization. It is one of the frontiers of professionals who are using science, who are using logic, who are using fact to question what really happened on September 11th. It's a must do if you want to examine this issue more thoroughly. Now, on Twitter today, Saddam Hussein was trending. Why? Because Donald Trump today said that Saddam Hussein was a bad guy, but the one thing about him was that he killed terrorists. Now, Iraq is a Harvard for terrorism. You want to become a terrorist? You go to Iraq. And when you examine the evidence with the United States invasion, with the overthrowing of Saddam Hussein, hanging him and releasing the video on YouTube and all over the internet later, with the George Bush's war in Iraq, we have created not only a huge vacuum of power inside of Iraq, but also extreme sectarian violence. And now, because of the war, because of the destruction of this authoritative, this dictator, who was oppressive, who was murdering innocent people too, because of this central figure's collapse, Iraq has become a hotbed for radical Islamic terrorism, and many military experts point to the fact of the Iraq war with the basic creation of ISIS. That is a well-known fact. What got us into the war in Iraq? Well, weapons of mass destruction, and now Trump is saying that Bush knew that there was no weapons of mass destruction, because it's even admitted, according to the CIA, their own intelligence was cooked. The intelligence that there was weapons of mass destruction was a complete and utter lie. And there's documentation, proof, and also whistleblowers within our own very government who knew that there were no weapons of mass destruction inside of Iraq, but yet that lie was perpetrated to us by our very own government and also the mainstream media that sold us this lie because they were succumbent to power and kissing Bush's butt. And because of the mainstream media's not doing their job, because they never fact checked, because they never did their own work, they took the government's lie, they swallowed it, and they gave it back to us, leading us to this extremely horrible situation in Iraq. Now, many people in the mainstream media are saying that, wait, is Donald Trump a 9/11 truther? Some people, even in the media, are saying, wait, let's examine all this. One of the few news organizations, was the Atlantic. All the other news organizations are just talking about these comments, but the Atlantic actually looked at his 9/11 comments and said, yeah, Trump is right. Which is extremely perplexing because Donald Trump, he says a lot of outrageous things about torture, about tagging people, about banning people, kicking people out, a lot of outrageous stuff. But on this issue, he is completely right, which is extremely perplexing. Now, I actually talked to Donald J. Trump. I was at the presidential debates. We made eye contact, and I asked him, does he support 9/11 victims' family members? Does he support 9/11 first responders, 9/11 survivors who are calling for a new and independent investigation of 9/11? He heard my question. We made eye contact. He looked down, he looked back at me, and then he walked away. So even though he's going all out, he hasn't gone fully into this. He is still watching his steps, but he's still, for some reason, breaking a lot of complex truths that you never see someone in the presidential election do, which is perplexing, to be honest. It's a paradox. Anyway, thank you again so much for watching Real and Independent Media. Don't forget to support us by going to wearechange.org/store, because this news is provided for you and by you. You're the only person who is sustaining us, keeping us fully independent, so we can provide you greater news and analysis here. Subscribe. We're going to have a lot more content coming here your way on youtube.com/wearechange.